Hi guys, I'm so excited to talk to you today. I'm Jade. If you don't know me already, I have done videos in the past for OCD recovery, and I'm really excited to be here today. And the main reason for that is that ever since I got better from OCD over the past few years, life has been kind of chaotic with having my children, with everything just being upside down. And my kids are both in full-time school now. So life has settled, and I have this new lease of life that I want to share with you. I'm going to be sharing my experiences in what life is like after recovery and just giving you some really helpful tips. So today I'm going to be talking about what I truly believe and have experienced firsthand is the missing piece in recovering from OCD. The reason that I know this to be true is that I have been there myself, suffering really badly with OCD. If you don't already know my story, my OCD first kicked in as a child, really ramping up in my early teen years and then becoming all consuming by the age of 17, which I know is really common for a lot of us. So I tried pretty much everything, and I'm here today to tell you that the topic of unconditional acceptance, which is not yet widely recognized as a gold standard treatment for recovering from OCD, but I am going to do what I can to support the OCD recovery team in making sure that it does, and that as much as it's massively on the map now because they're helping thousands and thousands of people every day, I want it to become the main thing that people realize and go to when they're really suffering with their OCD. So what we're going to talk about in this video is the different techniques that we can use for OCD recovery, including all of the mainstream things. This is not about being quirky and off the wall and trying some strange thing that no one ever has heard of. This is actually, today I'm going to be sharing with unconditional acceptance, a very recognized, celebrated and widely used therapy. So you don't have to feel unsure about it. It's very widely used. It's just that the way that it's being applied to OCD, I believe, is groundbreaking, is going to change the world, already is. So we'll look at the other tools that we can use, which are commonly known as gold standard and are really effective. But I'm just going to talk to you about why this is the one missing piece for those of us who have done everything, have tried everything, and are still super stuck. This is going to really help you. So what is unconditional acceptance as a concept? It was created by a guy called Dr. Albert Ellis, and he, along with another guy, was the original kind of creator of CBT. So the other guy, Aaron Beck, really went off and did that whole thing, but they ultimately created that together at that same time alongside each other. And then Albert Ellis branched off into another very similar form of therapy called REBT, rational emotive behavior therapy. And I promise this is not going to be like a deep psychology lesson. I just want to tell you who created this incredible concept. And so unconditional acceptance, what Albert did was he created groundbreaking 12 irrational beliefs. And so what that means is he documented, from doing a ton of deep insight into how people's brains work, he really studied highly anxious, severely depressed people, people with really bad problems in life. And he identified that the people who struggled really badly like that had these irrational beliefs, which I'll talk about in a minute. And the people who didn't suffer as greatly, so people who aren't suffering with OCD, people who aren't depressed, they adopted rational beliefs. And so all he teaches, it is so easy, is how to change your irrational beliefs to be rational so that you no longer suffer. And these 12 irrational beliefs, you can look them up if you would like to. I personally find them very interesting. But they are categorized into 3 areas. And they are, number 1, this idea of the world must treat me well. Life must go my way. Everything must be in the way that I want it. Otherwise, it's awful and I can't stand it and life will be unlivable. So that's like the one of 3 groups. The second one is other people must treat me well. I must be accepted. I must have them do the right thing. They mustn't mistreat me, or they're awful and they deserve to be written off forever. And the third one is and this is a big one for me, I must be good. I must perform well. I must be perfect. If I don't perform well, if I'm socially rejected, then I do not want to live. Life couldn't be more terrible. And so we call these three areas unconditional life acceptance. Well, the term to cover getting better with these irrational beliefs. So, for example, if you overcame the issue of life must go my way, which is irrational, so this irrational belief that life must go my way, you would be achieving unconditional life acceptance, which is no matter what happens in life, maybe I don't want these things to happen, I can still live with them. And it will not be positive, but it will not be terrifying. And that is quite simply how people without OCD and anxiety and depression and other issues live. Like, they have a rational view on these things. They don't want to get cancer one day. They know there's the chance they could, but they're not overly terrified about it because they have a rational framework around that. So the second one is people must treat me well, otherwise I write them off, and that is called unconditional other acceptance. And then the last one, where I must be perfect or life is dreadful, is called unconditional self-acceptance. So we can umbrella it all with just unconditional acceptance. Now, I'm just going to quickly run through the different tools and techniques that got me better from OCD, and then I'll sandwich in like how unconditional acceptance slots into that. So if you picture a jigsaw puzzle with loads of pieces, and maybe you've done all these things yourself and you're not quite better yet, this is going to be the piece that we can slot in. First of all, I'm going to talk about like how this got applied to OCD and why is it not known yet. Basically, Robert Bray, who runs this whole thing, like, I see my journey as quite similar to his, even though he was the person who's like created all of this and was brave enough to go through this process alone, see that it worked, applying unconditional acceptance to his own recovery journey, and then decided to spread the word. It all started with him not being content with not getting the full recovery that he felt must be possible. So similar to Rob, I was like, this can't be it. I'm not accepting this. I don't want to just be like existing, surviving. I want to get better. So he did that, and then he decided, okay, I've learned how to get better from OCD and now I want to share it with the world, and I just love that. So it all started for me in researching OCD really well, and not in a compulsive way, but just not taking no for an answer. Like, that's not getting me better. I've tried it loads of times. It doesn't quite line up for me. What else could be out there that could work? So if you're in that position and you're wondering what else could work, all I can say to you is research really thoroughly, ask questions of people and say, well, how is this going to help? And what about that? And what about this? And make sure that it lines up. So when I found unconditional acceptance, I was like, yes, that will work. I can see that makes rational sense. I like to think things through before I do them. I'm quite a pragmatic person. So I could see that that would work. So let's start with me. So I suffered since I was 8. That was my first panic attack about the world ending. And I remember not being able to eat very much as a kid due to anxiety. It really hit when I was 13 and then took over when I was 17. So, sob story. I basically lived from 17 to 26 completely in the dark, just thinking that all my fears were true, just suffering with OCD day in and day out with absolutely zero support. Okay, so the first, obviously, exposures. This is coined as the gold standard for OCD recovery. And of course it is, of course, like, you have to have exposures. I'm not saying that unconditional acceptance takes away from this. This is all really important stuff. It's just that the missing piece is unconditional acceptance. So with exposures, this is a really, really hard part of our OCD recovery journey. We have to do them. And I think because when I learned I had OCD, there was such a tenacity. I was like, I'm having this baby. I want to be a mother who is present with this experience. I do not want a life where my child feels like I wasn't connected with her, I wasn't close. And those aren't fears that latched. That is just what I didn't want for my life. I wonder if I'd learned about it when I was 21 and I didn't have any real motivation to get better from my themes of OCD, maybe I would have spent a bit longer kind of putting off exposures and like watching Netflix for a few more weekends, because that's all I used to do, was just Netflix and drinking. And I had this determination that I can't even put into words. I was like, this is not going to be my life. I cannot stress enough how hard I went at it with exposures. Like the scariest things possible, just like several times a day for a really extended period, and just being really, really anxious as a result of them. Now, I'm not saying you have to do it like that. I think because having my child was my greatest exposure, life was an exposure. So it wasn't like I just couldn't take care of her. I couldn't bath her. I couldn't change her. It's like, well, you have to. So 12 times a day, you are changing a baby. Starting now, like you have to do it. So doesn't necessarily mean you have to do as many exposures as that, but I truly believe that having an intense exposure program is really worthwhile, and making sure that it's definitely getting at the root of your fears. The other one is going with uncertainty. So yeah, this definitely helps, like, and especially with some of my milder OCD themes. Like I always had a thing about like raw chicken, and now I can very easily go with uncertainty on that fear, because I don't know, like I'm not overcooking my chicken anymore. And when because obviously overcooked chicken is horrible and perfectly cooked chicken is really succulent. And there's that fine line between undercooked, perfect, and overcooked. I would always go with overcooked. But now I take the risk, because I go with uncertainty, that, oh, well, no one is ever going to know, but I'm not sacrificing eating good chicken for this stupid fear of mine. So I love to make chicken about right. And the uncertainty is, well, I don't know if I'm going to make my whole family sick and end up on a drip in hospital. That was always the fear. And I'm okay with that. And in a minute, we will talk about how unconditional acceptance really... That was muted. Oh, I really hope that the whole thing isn't muted. Oh my gosh. So I have to go with the fact that the family may get ill. And so that's where unconditional acceptance really helped. Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to know if that's okay until I have stopped filming. And then the next one is leaving thoughts alone. How many times had I heard the advice, oh, just leave the thoughts there. Keep the thoughts until later in the day. Give yourself a window of time when you are gonna engage in those thoughts. Like, are you kidding me? And I get it, like for milder themes and for milder OCD, that's absolutely worked, because I know that, because if you think of themes of yours that don't latch very hard, you can quite literally see that it probably would work on those. If, I don't know, I used to have quite severe ROCD, and now, because I still have OCD, even though it doesn't like control me in any way or affect my life, if an ROCD thought pops up, I can actually leave the thought alone, because it doesn't really grip anymore, because I've got this unconditional acceptance piece. Oh my gosh, I'm obviously so excited to talk about how this all fits in. And so the unconditional acceptance is almost enabling everything that I'm talking about here. So leaving thoughts alone, yeah, it is a good thing to do. Like if you're trying to get on with your day, it's good to leave the thoughts alone, not engage in them, and just try and get on with your day as best as you can. That's a really good tool. I think my message is that won't cut it alone. On its own, that won't do anything if your OCD is not budging. And I always find it interesting when people say, oh, will that work? And it's like, well, has it worked? Because you're asking, and I imagine everyone's tried to ignore the thoughts. And if it worked, OCD wouldn't be a problem. So definitely for milder cases. And if it is working for you, I am so happy, because we want everyone better. And so the other one is the stopping. So stopping compulsions, stopping reassurance and avoidance, and stopping the confessing. So this is huge, because this is like the drug that fuels it going. So if you're constantly asking a loved one for reassurance, that has to stop. If you're avoiding situations that trigger you, you need to go toward them. So there were many things that I avoided in my darkest days, and now they're a huge part of my life. In fact, now that I'm recovered, they're things I actually enjoy. And so, you know, you can get there too. I literally just had invisible braces fitted. So this is why I'm talking a bit funny today. So with the compulsions, we need to just stop them, and not berate ourselves when we slip up. Another strand of where unconditional acceptance is going to really help you. You need to stop the confessing, because it's only going to fuel it. So if you think of everything that you do that makes you feel better when you're suffering with OCD, that is only going to make it stronger. And the reason for that is that when you are not, say you struggle with POCD and you don't want to go near a swimming pool, you are actually telling your brain that's a dangerous place. And you can't trick yourself. You can't pretend, oh, I'm just not going because I don't feel like it. No, your brain knows that has been marked down as a dangerous place. We don't go to those places. And so what happens is the fear grows. It's like anything. The longer you put something off, the more your fear will grow. So the general rule is what you want to avoid, we need to move towards. So all of these things are so important. What I found was the unconditional acceptance, like, activated all of these. It wasn't like an instead of, it activated it. So I am no hairstylist, but imagine, you know, when they've got like a hair color, like, I don't know, to make your hair blonde, and they mix it and then they put this activating agent in, I think, and then they mix it up, and that is what creates this formula that will actually do the right thing to your hair. Otherwise, maybe it'll go blue or something. Like in that movie Bride Wars, where she puts the wrong thing in and the girl's hair goes blue. That type of thing. So how does unconditional acceptance fit into this puzzle? Okay. I believe that no matter how many times, or I saw from experience, that no matter how many times I expose myself to something scary, if I still truly believe that it is awful, how am I possibly ever going to move past it? So if you really believe that getting unwell with a really nasty disease is the worst thing that could possibly happen, and your exposure is maybe to go near, I don't know, maybe it's HIV you're scared of, and your exposure is you need to go to an HIV clinic, walk up to the desk and just ask for a flyer with their phone number, and that's your exposure. If you really truly believe that catching HIV is the worst thing, it's your worst fear and you could not stand it and it'd be horrendous, it doesn't matter how many times you expose yourself to the chance of getting it, or expose yourself to the things you've been avoiding that are obviously safely within reason to do that, that fear is not going to budge. Now, again, if the fear did budge from exposures alone, great. Maybe it didn't latch as hard as it has for me and everyone else. We're talking about when OCD will not unlatch and it is absolutely fused on tight, and no matter what you've tried, it's not going anywhere. So why would unconditional acceptance help in this situation? Well, by realizing and working on the belief in your brain, that irrational belief that life must go the way I want it to go. Sorry, I do keep checking that mic. It must go the way I want it to go, otherwise I can't stand it. If I get HIV, the world is dreadful. I cannot stand it. Well, once we shift our belief from an irrational belief of I cannot stand this to a rational belief of I certainly wouldn't want to get that. That would be really challenging in so many ways, but I could certainly still have gratitude for many other areas of life. I don't know, maybe you've got a beautiful family set up. You've got amazing friends who are your family, and you would sit there unwell and you would be, I don't know, playing with yarn and making beautiful things and meeting people with amazing perspectives in the hospital and having really deep, meaningful, connected talks with your loved ones because, wow, I never used to do that. I was so wrapped up in my big corporate job and all my supposed worries that actually now that I'm truly having difficulty, life has deepened. And there are many examples of this happening in reality for people. This is going to be deep belief shift work. And it's not about agreeing that this would be fine if this happens. This would be great. This is what I want. Acceptance is not agreement. But can you see that by not fearing the things that you deem to be terrifying is actually going to help loosen OCD's grip? Because if you're not scared of it, it's not going to latch. And the only proof that we need of this is I just want you to think of, in your mind right now, maybe you're in a forum or a community, think of a time when someone that you know, another OCD sufferer, has talked about a theme and you have thought, I just wouldn't find that scary. Like, why are they scared about that? Like, then reflect on the content of that theme. I imagine you're not scared of it. Like for me, I am not scared of divorce. We've had a lot of it in my family. There's zero shame attached to it. So as much as I've had ROCD in the past, I've never been extremely worried about the idea of divorce and separating my family because I've seen that it's not that bad and I have quite a rational view on it. But for other people, divorce is a very big deal. And actually, there can be religious ties with that too. So that can be even more challenging as a concept and can be even more of a reason why someone really wouldn't want that. But when we adopt a rational mindset, we can challenge any belief that we have. And the reason we know this is because other people are not scared of our fear. They just have a healthy concern. So if you really think about, of my themes, what is it that I'm really scared of here? And then working with the tools set out in unconditional acceptance and Albert Ellis's work in REBT, rational emotive behavior therapy, and set out to work on disputing your irrational beliefs. And disputing just means like counteracting them, like ridding them. And this is absolutely important here. This is not about just telling yourself something, because that is a compulsion. So if you have tried to do this in the past and all you've done is gone, okay, the chicken seems raw, it would be okay if I get really ill from this. That is definitely not it. This is about, when you're not triggered, working on your belief system to change it to have healthy, rational responses. And let me tell you, this is going to help you in so many ways, not just in your OCD recovery. Like, having a rational mindset has really helped me in so many areas of life. Like, there was some drama at my school not long ago and everyone was freaking out, up in arms. I was like, guys, it's going to be what it's going to be. Let's just see how things go with the flow and just chill. And everyone was like, how can you be so calm about this? And I was like, because it doesn't matter. And so you can see that I have a rational framework in my mind. That doesn't mean I don't get irritated by things. I definitely get irritated, usually by small things, but it just goes to show that, like, I'm human and I actually enjoy that feeling because I laugh at myself and it brings me back down to earth, and it's an opportunity to really work on those things. So what else was I going to say? Okay, so I'm just going to lastly talk about the reasons why people are stuck, because the next video I'm going to talk about the biggest reasons people are stuck in their OCD. So I'll just really quickly outline those. Number one is really not doing your exposures, like putting them off. I know it's hard, I know it's scary, but we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about reassurance and not giving up on it and lying to yourself when you're getting reassurance and pretending it's not, Sadly, the fact that not many therapists really truly understand OCD is another one. So what can you do now? Start the reading list. OCDrecovery.com, there's a page called reading list. Start with the first book. You can start the exercises and maybe join one of the OCD recovery webinars. And I really hope to see you again soon. I promise I'll do more videos. Please like, comment, subscribe, all the things. And thank you so much for listening to me. I'll see you next time.